Therun Sarnai. Is it not a long weekend? Is it not? Ah. So you don't have any friends anymore then? This is very atypical. Usually when there's a long weekend, you're not supposed to be at a sermon, of all places. What's happened? What's happened to you? Are you losing it? Are you losing it or are you using it? Which one? Using it? People will think that you're losing it though, until they realize that actually it's now that you have started using it. Using what? Using what? Your valuable human lives for what it's worth, isn't it? I mean, just think about it, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I've been there. I know what it's like. You really used to look forward to those long weekends. At the thought of a long weekend, I would salivate. Such was the hectic nature of my life. You know, it didn't matter whether it was the New Year, Christmas, Vesak, whatever it was just an excuse to relax and relieve myself of all the pent-up and built-up vexations of the week and the months and the long years that would go past in the office and among colleagues and all sorts, paying bills and running errands and doing this and that and whatnot. Life seemed like a punishment. Life really seemed like a punishment. Punishment for, I didn't know what for. Life really seemed like a punishment. And there are people who still believe that life is a punishment. So what do? They go to the church, they go to the mosque, they go to the temple, and they beg from the powers that be, please relieve me of this punishment. I beg of you. What is it that we can exchange? What is it that you like that I could offer you so that you could offer me relief? So they try to barter with God, with nature, sometimes even with the Buddha. And then they for a moment forget that the Buddha is no longer here. 2,500 years ago, the Buddha passed into Parinibbāna. But you still hear from time to time, people would go into the temple and they sit down in front of the Buddha, or they clasp their hands together and they beg from the Buddha. Oh dear Buddha, please, may my children pass their exams. Please may I get that bonus that I've been looking forward to. That's the thing. When people begin to feel that they are victims of the circumstances in which they find themselves, then they always have to go to those who they feel or who they believe are those who put them into those circumstances. And then they have to beg for their mercy. But that's not what intelligent and wise people do. This is all about wisdom, isn't it? What we share is wisdom, insightful wisdom. Wisdom that helps you to realize that you can make your own today, you can make your own tomorrow, you can make your own future. Your past was your own doing. And then you become independent, ladies and gentlemen. Then you are only a servant to your own actions. That is what it is. Not a servant to anyone. You are a servant to your own actions. And then you are the master of your own actions when you understand that your actions will bring you consequences. Whether that is reward or repercussion, either way. It's to become your own master, and for that you have to understand that you are your own slave. That's what it is. So those insights are what we are here to share with each other. It is what you do merits for, and you must give yourselves a pat on the back for bringing yourselves here, despite it being a long weekend, because I remember my long weekends were not spent at the temple or at a sermon. They were spent traveling, going around, going to parties or going to the beach, being with friends and doing things that I thought were the things that I was supposed to do while I still had my youth with me. Because I thought to myself, soon enough I'm going to grow old and weak and frail, and then I will not be able to do any of these things. So whilst I still have youth on my side, I must get out and party. So the fear of growing old was always with me. I always had it in me. I don't know if you still feel that. The fear of growing old seems like such a threat just looming around the corner. Because you know that the things that you are able to do today, you won't be able to do when you're older. So then, if you only have limited time within which you have to fulfill all your desires, then when should you start? When must you start? No, not today, yesterday. And that is why everyone is in such a rush, trying to get all those things done, trying to tick all those things off their checklist of things that they want to do while they're still young. Partying and clubbing and dancing and music and going out to the movies and going out with friends and going around the world. Holidaying and all those adventure things that they like to do. I used to have a list like that. I want to do kayaking and abseiling and rock climbing and jumping off a bridge, jumping off an aircraft with a parachute. I wanted to do all those things myself before old age would catch up with me, and then I would not be able to get out of my bed. So the threat of old age was always worrying me, and then I realized that actually old age, this growing old, is only a creation of my own mind. It is a concoction of the mind. It is a fabrication of the mind. And then so was youth. That was also a creation of the mind. Age in itself is a creation of the mind. So no matter what age you feel you are, that is how the mind feels right now. On there days, even if you're older, on there days where you feel more young than you are, I mean, you feel younger. Even sometimes you tell yourself and you tell your people around you, I feel much younger than I am. Sometimes you feel older. You say, I really feel much older than I am. It's all about how the mind feels. And the Buddha's teaching is to figure out these emotions that we go through and to try and understand how our minds work. Because once you've mastered your mind, you've mastered it all. You've mastered it all, trust me. So, I think you must be really pleased with yourself. The fact that Nibbāna seems to have become so centric to your lives, and it has become a very important and crucial quest in your lives, is no small feat, I must say. It is no small achievement. It is your doing, and you must give yourselves credit for that, ladies and gentlemen. It takes a great degree of understanding the Dhamma and to have realized the true purpose of Dhamma, to actually convince yourselves to be here today when more than half of the friends you know, people you know, will be touring somewhere in Sri Lanka or maybe going around the world around these days, because it's one of those few times in the year when you get so many days lined up together and you can take one nice long weekend. It was funny because on the way in, I was talking with the Swami Mahanse, and he said, I said, more than likely we'll have very few people in the audience today. I said, why? Because I had forgotten. Because I don't have weekends anymore. Like, all my ends are strong ends. There's no time to be weak. The Dhamma has strengthened me, so I don't have any weekends. So I was asking him, why? He said, well, it's a long weekend, you know. I said, oh yeah, it is, isn't it? And so I really was not expecting this many people. I knew there would be the regulars, I knew there would be the devoted. Among devotees we have the devoted. You know the difference? Yeah? So I knew we would have the devoted. But then to see so many faces here today, it just is a resounding vote of confidence. Not about me, but the fact that you believe that Nibbana is achievable. That's why you have decided to make this investment of time and investment of your life in such a worthy and valuable cause. So hats off to you right off the start, and you can thank yourselves for being here today. Lives transform, ladies and gentlemen, with the Dhamma. And it matters not what age you are. I think you are living, breathing evidence of that. It doesn't matter how old you are when you start. It simply matters that you have started. You know, in the old story, the rabbit and the tortoise, who won the race? It's not the one who could run fast, was it? It never is. You know, these tales, they have such profound wisdom, lessons for us to learn. It was not the one who could run fast. It was the one who was consistent. It was the one who persevered. It was the one who was determined. So, allow me to remind you of that, of the moral of that story once again, a story that you would have learned many, many, many decades ago. The moral of that story is, it doesn't matter when you start. So don't ever curse yourselves for having started on this journey too late. It's never like that. It's never like that. Don't you worry about that. The Buddha's Sásana is so potent. It's so potent that it doesn't matter when you start. All that matters is that you have started and that you keep going on that journey. Because if it doesn't happen in this time, in this lifetime, it will happen in the next. All you need is that strong resolve and determination that you want to do this. That's it. Have that unquenchable, insatiable desire in your mind, in your heart, that you really want Nibbana. And how does that happen? Through your understanding of it, no other way. Nibbana is only a dream or a fantasy for those who do not understand what Nibbana is. These discourses are to help you figure out what Nibbana actually is. And once you figure that out, then there is not a soul in the world who can extinguish the fire that ignites within you, the fire, the desire to attain Nibbana. And then not any force in the world can stop you or hold you back. Sometimes it could be a fast-paced journey for you. Other times it can be slow-paced, but as long as you're heading forward, steadfast, the result that you seek will be yours in no time. Trust me. These are the Buddha's words. My job is simply to repeat them to you. I have one example of such a story with me. I will read it to you in a moment. before I make the cardinal sin again of not precepting you at the start. So let's do that first. Let's take a moment to bring our palms together. And what better a day than it is today, the day just before Vesak. A time for us to reflect on what Vesak really represents for us. What's better than Vesak is Venasak, isn't it? So let's bring our palms together in veneration of the great teacher, the master, our guide. And as we do so, let us also remind ourselves that this is not a mere mark of respect or veneration that we make towards his holy name, but also a pledge of allegiance that we take upon ourselves to walk the path of bliss, the noble eightfold path that is sure and certain to take us to the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. So, with that in mind, let us take this moment to chant the Namaskara, take refuge in the Noble Triple Gem, observe the precepts, and then continue with today's proceedings. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Once someone asked me, Swaminathan, when you observe or when you precept us with the sixth precept, why do you do it 3 times? Dutiyampi and Tatiyampi and so on. So there's a reason for that. Available to you, ladies and gentlemen, are 3 doors. 3 doors. 3 doors through which you let things out. 1 is the body, 2 is your speech, and 3 is the mind. Through these doors, you interact with the world around you. Each of these times that we take this precept is for each one of these doors. So every Sunday, I precept you the whole lot. So through my mind, through speech, and through my bodily action, I will always conduct myself compassionately towards all sentient beings. Now, whether or not that is possible, that's another matter. My job is to precept you. Your job is to adhere to your precepts and to try and remain faithful and true to your precepts. But I understand that it all depends on how much or less vexation you have building up in your mind. Because you're like a pressure cooker, ladies and gentlemen. It's the way it is. Your mind is like a pressure cooker. The more pressure there is, the more pressure there is to be released. So, there are those who, through their practice of the Dhamma, are able to contain that pressure to just 1 or 2 of the doors. So they feel it in their minds, and the furthest they would go is to express some kind of anger or some hurtful words, maybe something harsh, but only verbally. They will not go as far as expressing it physically. But then there are others who do. Perhaps no one in this audience goes that far. But then there are others who do. So for them, the first attempt that they can do is to try and curb that, the first line of defense, if you like. So the first precept of the Sabba Sattesu Metta Sahagatena Cetasa Viharanang Samadhyami is to make a solemn promise to yourselves that I will not physically, using my body, do anything that would be harmful or detrimental to one's happiness, to someone else's quality of life, to hurt them, to harm them, and to be compassionate towards them. So that's the first line of defense. The second, through your practice, you are able to then continue to reduce your vexation in your mind to such an extent that you can now not even have to express it verbally. So that's the second degree. The second degree of self-control. It's still there in your heart. You still can feel that resentment, right? Maybe, although you would not say it to someone's face, when they're gone, wishing that they were there so that you could have said whatever you wanted to say, you'll still say it out loud, right? Or sometimes you might just murmur it or something, or maybe it's when you walk and take yourself into the washroom and lock yourself in, and then turn on the shower so that no one can hear. But you'll still spill it out because it's difficult to keep it in when it's, when it's hot. You have to vent it. These are your exhaust valves, if you like. Your body is one. When there's so much pressure in there, you have to release it. Remember the old saying? Well, I don't know whether it's an old saying. I think we worked on it and we invented it all together. Hurt people, right? So hurt people. So when someone's hurt inside, how can you expect them not to hurt another? Don't you agree? When someone's hurt on the inside, it would be a far-fetched expectation to expect them not to hurt someone else. Because it kind of comes naturally to them. It's like if I place something really hot, say a hot bowl of metal in your hand, what's the first thing you're going to think of doing? Actually, even without even thinking about it, what would you do? Either drop it or throw it. Right? To be able to just continue to hold it in your hand while it's still hot and it's burning, that takes a lot of courage. It takes tons of patience. And it takes a real determination. Just imagine you were not allowed to drop it. All you could do was to pass it to someone else, if that was the rule. If you were given a hot iron bowl, the only thing you were allowed to do is not drop it, but pass it to someone else. Then you'd have to be really considerate about the people around you to not pass it to someone else, right? Because it's hurting you, it's burning you. When anger hits you, when resentment strikes you, when lust takes over, either raga, dvesha or moha, whichever way. Sometimes it may be times when you're feeling superior or inferior to others. Even in those moments, it doesn't always have to be anger. Say, for instance, someone comes up to you and they start talking about all the things that they've done and how good they are. It's very difficult for someone to just keep quiet and listen to all that, because you feel like, oh, hold on a second. The more they keep saying about how good they are, it makes me feel like I'm worth nothing. So now it's a competition. I have to say something, because in your mind, your sense of ego will start hurting you. And so before you know it, you'll say something really subtle. Sometimes it won't be very pronounced, it won't be very obvious, but it'll be very subtle, something that just makes you feel a little bit better. Sometimes it might be something as simple as, yeah, I know. Yeah, well, everyone helped, right? Something like that. So someone says, how good they've been and how well they've done. Well, of course, people help you, right? Or you'll say, well, I'm glad to have been there to support you when you needed me. Because you feel like they're taking the trophy away from you. And who does the trophy belong with? 3 people. Who? Me, myself, and I. All trophies in this world belong to those 3 people, me, myself, and I. And it is not to be shared with anyone else or not to be taken away by anyone else. So if ever there is the threat that such trophies are going to be taken away from you, you must retrieve them. So there are times when your ego gets the better of you, and it's very difficult to just remain quiet when someone tries to be, wears the big shoes in front of you and make themselves look like they're better than you. It's very difficult to keep your mouth shut at those times. Inside you feel that, no, I don't like this, I have to say something. I really have to say something. And this is not just among strangers, even among friends, even among family. You're probably not even doing this with your spouse without even knowing you're doing it. It just happens so naturally. That's a very natural tendency. Natural because there are causes inside which give you this sense of self, and it creates a sense of ego, and once you have that sense of ego, you have to do something about it because it's starting to hurt you from the inside. You want to feel like you're at least equals, if not you're better than the other person. That one-upmanship, it's almost like it's in your mental genes. Now don't nod to any of these because it will be embarrassing. Don't nod to any of these. Just let them resonate, between your 2 ears. Let them resonate and see whether any of this applies to you. If it does, well, good, you're in the right place, you're in the right sermon. If it doesn't, don't worry, I'm talking about the person sat next to you. Just like you, they also bought a ticket, so we must be fair to them as well. But hey, let's be honest. If I know what I was like, I know what you are like. Because as much as we might like to think that we're all different to one another, actually, the fundamentals are always the same. You know the old saying, it takes one to know one, right? Yes, I am one. And so are you. It takes one to know one. So I know what you're going through. I know what raga feels like. I know what desire feels like. Unless you're an arahant in the room, if you're an arahant in the room, then I don't really know exactly what you feel like. Because I'm aspiring to become one. So I don't quite know what you feel like. But if you're not an arahant, then I know what you feel, what it feels like to be you. I may not know what it feels like to have that specific, particular problems that you're going through right now, but I know how it vexes you. Because vexation is the same. Whether it arises in this mind, this mind, this mind, this mind, or that mind, it is always the same. Because vexation is merely the product of ignorance and attachment. So as long as the causes are the same, what else is the same? The effect is the same. If I were to make a cup of tea with with precisely, say some ingredients, so we take sugar, hot water, tea, and maybe say milk, a milk tea, right? We make it with a certain amount of ingredients, and I am able to duplicate or replicate that. With exactly and precisely the same amount of ingredients, you would not be able to tell the difference. In the same manner, ladies and gentlemen, if there are two effects which are the causes of the same, or which is the product of the same causes, once again, if there are two effects which are the products of the same causes, those two effects will be identical. That's why I have said to you this before, and I will repeat again. The irony of this is, that which makes you feel that you are separate to one another is the only thing that is actually identical amongst all of you. That is such an irony. Once you get your head around it, the ant that's just crawling on the floor under your feet feels a sense of self just as much as you do, and it's the same sense of self that it feels. But in addition to that sense of self, you have lots of other things that you've added on to that. Like the fact that you're a man or a woman, the fact that you're married or unmarried, the fact that you have an age, the fact that you have a family, the fact that you have friends, the fact that you know where you are. These are things that an ant might not compute, because they don't have the intelligence to absorb that information and to contemplate that information. Because of that, perhaps they only feel a sense of self, and in addition to that they're hungry, or they're thirsty, or they're tired, or they want to reproduce. These are the instincts, as we say. These instincts animals go through. But because we have the power of intelligence, we are able to absorb more information, assimilate that information, and make more sense of the world. But the underlying sense of self, what about that? That is identical. Don't you see the joke there? Your sense of self makes you feel that you are unique, right? What a joke that is. Because it is the same sense of self that occurs in every single mind. So if we were to take away your memory, let's just imagine we could do that. If we were able to extract your memory, detach your mind from its access to your memory, you would all be the same. You would not be able to tell who you were. You would feel just the same way in someone else's mind. And that is the one bit that makes you feel that you are unique. What a laugh. Does that make sense to you? Did that make sense to you? Because that's a really important part of understanding anicca, dukkha and anatta as well. That is why this sense of self is just overrated. It is not as unique as you think it is. You are not as unique as you think you are. Underneath, we are all the same. And I don't mean physically, cut us and we all bleed the same. That's not what I mean, ladies and gentlemen. Even mentally, you're all the same. Each chitta arises to process an object, a mental object. Chakkuncha paticca rupecha uppajjati chakku viññāna. When the eye comes into contact with an object, consciousness is born. If you could reproduce those causes in another place, the same effect will arise. What makes you think you are unique? What makes you think you are special? I don't mean this in a bad way. Okay, like what makes you think you're special? I don't mean it that way. I mean it in a very philosophical way. Okay? I'm not telling you off like your school teacher would do. What makes you think you're so special? I walked into the room, everyone else stood up, but you didn't. What makes you think you're so special? Not in that tone, okay? I mean this in a very philosophical way. Right? This is the time for us, it's time for us to contemplate the Dhamma. The biggest and the only problem in your life is the fact that you feel special. That is the problem. That is your curse. You feel special. By special, I mean you feel unique. You feel you're so different to the person sat next to you, but you both ate from the same rice pot. If you all live together, you eat together. And that food is cooked together. That food is grown on the same paddy field. It's all done together. It takes energy from the same sun and takes its nutrients from the same soil. But after you've eaten it, you feel like you're special. Where did that specialness happen? What is your speciality? Well, I'm a surgeon, Swami, so that's my speciality. That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. I mean in a very philosophical way. What is your speciality? What is it that makes you special? Don't you all feel special? By special, I mean unique. Do you feel like you're the same person sat next to you? Do you? If you did, you wouldn't get married to that person. You wouldn't have gotten married to that person if you felt that you were the same person. I mean, who gets married to themselves? See, I was married once because I thought I was unique. So I went around finding my unique partner. I knew that there was someone out there. My princess, I knew she was out there. I wanted to be her prince, and my princess was waiting out there. Because I was special, and so was she. So when we met, I used to say things to her that made her feel special. All the while feeding ignorance after ignorance after ignorance into her innocent mind. You don't realize this? Every time you make someone feel that they're unique and they're special, what you're really doing is you're feeding in ignorance into their minds. Because ultimately, to become free, to become liberated, what you really got to understand is that you're not special at all. You are one with nature. You are nature and nature is you. So how can any of us be special? For as long as we feel, ladies and gentlemen, that we are independent or we are unique, we are an entity in some way, that itself is the curse. You know, what we tend to do generally, this is the lay attitude to life. Okay? What we generally tend to do is we tend to solve the problems that come to our unique selves. That's what we tend to do. And Aryan does something else. What they do is they try to eliminate this sense of uniqueness. Now take this for instance. Let me break it down for you. I'll ask you a question, okay? Now you won't know everyone in the audience, but you may know someone in the audience, but if not, the simplest way to do this is think of someone you share your life with. So a member of your family, a friend, someone, okay? Besides the physical characteristics, so you may be a man, they may be a woman, besides those physical characteristics, think of a few ways in which you and they are unique. Now I want you to do it now. This is a meditation. Meditation is contemplation. You don't have to be sat in a particular way with your back upright or anything like that. You're sat just fine the way you are. All I want you to now do is contemplate. Okay, so the question I've asked you is, think of a few ways, let's say three ways in which you are different, you are unique, you are different to someone else that you know. Think of 3 ways for a second, and then we'll continue the conversation. Think of 3 ways. Okay, got 3? It's not so difficult. If it's so difficult, then you don't really know the person that you're living with. Right, so you got 3 ways, right? Among these 3 things that you have identified will be things along the lines of these. They have different likes and dislikes. That'll be 1. They'll have different problems to you. They have different sets of challenges to you. Their preferences will be different, their likes and dislikes will be different, their problems will be different, their opportunities will be different. What they do for a hobby might be different. So again, back to likes and dislikes. You see, and other things that you will have already thought of, whatever it is that you've got in your mind, these are all things that sit above the sense of self. Let me draw it on the board for you for a second. I'll read the letter in a moment. Because we started off on this foot, let's continue. So this is me. And this is the other person. So I've written me and they on the board. Okay? When I ask you to think about 3 ways in which the 2 of you are different to one another, you may have thought of likes and dislikes. So I'll put it up here. You will have a set of likes and dislikes. They will have something different. That's how you're different. I mean, if they had the same likes and dislikes, ignoring the physical characteristics, if they had the same likes and dislikes, preferences will be different. Yes, there will be some common, but I'm talking about what makes you feel that they're different to you, okay? And let's take another. Can you name someone? Habits, yes, habits. Habits. Right, let's work with these three. Likes and dislikes, preferences, habits. Just imagine, once again, we're ignoring the physical characteristics, okay? So you look different, that we're just going to ignore that for the purpose of this discussion. If these three things were identical on the other side, would you be able to tell that they were different to you? Think about it for a second. If these three aspects were the same for the other person, in other words, their likes and dislikes were the same as yours, right? To the letter, they were the same. Preferences, the same. Habits, the same. Ignoring the physical characteristics, if they were identical to you in all these aspects, you'd feel like you were living with another version of yourself. There are these and more, what shall we call them, idiosyncrasies, things that are different, peculiar to each other, that make you feel that you are different, living with a different person, right? But here's the thing, dear. You're talking about everything above this line. You're talking about things above this line. This is the baggage. If you go under this line, if you go below this line, alas, you are both the same. Because here what you have is a mind, another mind. By function and purpose, they are identical. And on top of that, if they feel a sense of self, it would be the same way in which you feel a sense of self, because a sense of self is a product of ignorance and attachment. Ignorance and attachment does not change from person to person or from mind to mind. It's the same stuff. So the same sense of, or the same ignorance and attachment on this side, the same ignorance and attachment on this side would give rise to a sense of self which would be identical on either side. Now just imagine a world in which you didn't have any of this, and you only had this, what's below the line. In such a world, ladies and gentlemen, you just feel like you were everyone, and everyone was you. You would feel no different to the person sat next to you. Once again, ignoring the physical characteristics. If you want, you can add the physical characteristics here. Just imagine they looked like you, identical in every shape or form, right? If they were your exact resemblance, then you would not really be able to tell two people apart at all. The point I want to make with you is this. All of this sits above a truth that you are ignorant to, that most people are ignorant to. The truth that most people are ignorant to is this. This sense of self, which you feel is what makes you unique, is actually not unique at all. It's the same on either side. It's the same thing. In other words, if you were to do this, plug all this to this person, plug all that to this person, what would happen? What do you think would happen? Imagine you, with all your likes and dislikes, preferences and habits, right? We severed this connection, because where is all this? Where is all this? This is not part of your core chitta. It's part of your baggage. It's in your memory. Okay? Much of this is part of your memory. So if you were to unplug that, sever that connection and do a cross match, if you were to cross over like this, then you would actually not know what had happened. You really would not know what had happened. You would just continue to feel a sense of self, like you've been doing all this while, except you would now be feeling that this stuff on the other side is what your personality is. I'm seeing some convinced faces and some blank faces. Let me try that again. The simple question is this. This is the problem that has cursed mankind since the beginning of time. In fact, this is why you're here. You're here, ladies and gentlemen, because you feel you're a different person to the person sat next to you. You feel that you're a unique individual to the person sat next to you. And you don't like them. You can't get along with them. If you were able to get along with everyone in this world, you wouldn't be here. There are the people that you can't get along with, you can categorize into two groups. One, everyone else. Two, who's the second person you can't get along with? Exactly. Yourself. Yourself. You can't get along with yourself. Because when your mind starts complaining, when your mind starts regretting, repentance and all that, and you start going into fear and grievance and sorrow, you don't like that. It's hurtful, it's painful, so you can't get along with yourself. That's why you're here. On top of that, you also can't get along with the people that you have to get on. You have to get along with. And that doesn't work either. And that's why you're here once again. See, if you ignore Buddhist philosophy for a moment, the stuff that we talk about on Sundays for a moment, if you went to any other kind of personal development class or relationship advice or counseling therapy or anything like that, here's what they're going to talk about. Everything above this line. Here's what they'll ask you to do. Try and be more understanding of the other person. I mean, don't get me wrong, we talk about some of this stuff in here as well, every once in a while. But that's only until you get across the finish line. Until then, you have to be able to cohabit, coexist, right? And to have a sense of peace of mind is good to have until you are able to fully contemplate the Dhamma, and then you realize, actually, there is nothing below this anyway for me to worry about what's above the line. Above the line, ladies and gentlemen, is where most people struggle. This is where they see the problems exist. The fact that my wife does not like the same things that I do. That's the problem that you have. Is it not? My children don't like the same things that I do. Is that not the problem you have? My preferences are different to my friend's preferences, my colleagues, my boss's preferences. That's my problem. He wants me to stay and do extra hours at work, and I don't. I want to go back home and rest. That's my problem. How do I unravel this problem? How do I work with this problem? I try to keep convincing him, he or her, she won't listen, he won't listen. But I can't afford to lose my job either. So what do I do? And then when it comes to family, you didn't choose your family. You have to get along with them. At least a friend, you can say, thanks for being a friend, but enough is enough. And right, you can cut the ties there. But when it comes to family, it's not easy to do that. And you tend not to do that. What you try and do is to try and get along with them. But it's very challenging because their likes and dislikes are not always the same as yours. You want to go out tonight and he wants to eat in tonight. What do? So what you tend to have to do is go out, take away, and then bring it back in and eat. So, you have to try and balance life. Isn't that what you always do? Don't you feel like you're always on a balancing line, like doing a balancing act all the time? Always, trying to do 50% of what you want and 50% of what he or she wants. Some days it's like 90% of what they want and 10% of what you want. Some days it's like nothing of what I want. It's all what he or she wants, right? There are days that you feel like that, don't you? See, all of those struggles are, is it below or above this line? It's all above this line. You've picked the wrong battle. This is not a battle that can be won. You might as well give up, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a fight that you can win. You've heard that the prince renounced. He renunciated his worldly life, right? The Prince Siddhartha. I renounced my lay life. That is only a very metaphorical sense of renunciation. What I really renounced is the life above this line. That's what I really renounced. That's what the prince renounced. That's what the Bodhisattva renounced. And he realized that the fight is not above the line. The fight is below the line. Where are you still fighting? Shh. I don't need your answer. You need your answer. But please ask yourself, where are you still picking your battles? Because you're fighting your battles up here, you're losing the war. Your war is against yourself. But you give up the war and you go pick little teeny weeny tiny battles with each other. But the war is down here. Because you're not prepared to lose the battle, you end up losing the war. When the day shall come where you are prepared to renounce your battles up here, is the day that you will start to win the war. May these words resonate in your minds now and forever. Trust me, folks, you will not find peace up here. Because it is impossible to find peace up here. To have a world where everyone likes what you like. What do the grey hairs on your head tell you about this very question? All these years of fighting up here, right? All these years, what have they convinced you? Is it a war that seems like you're going to win any one of these days? No, that's why you're exhausted. Like we discussed last week, remember? Why does exhaustion come? Where does it come from? Work. Up here is a whole lot of work. And the thing is this is work that will never be done. Because today you will convince one person, tomorrow you have to sit with the next person, and then you've got to start again. And while you're convincing the second person, the first person goes around, talks to the third person, and then the third person has reconvinced them to their original point of view. And now they come back to you again. And now you've got to start again from scratch. It's never ending up there. The Sásana begins below the line. The world exists above the line. Where do you want to be a victor? Down here or up there? See, take the president of our country, for instance. There's a common belief that the more higher up you are, the more up the hierarchy you are, the more power you possess, the more authority you have, the more you can have things the way you like. Yeah? Do you think that's working? I can tell you one thing for certain. You get more hours of sleep than His Excellency. You have you have fewer sleepless nights than His Excellency. You have more peace of mind than His Excellency. That much I know for certain. You only have domestic problems. They have international problems. In addition to the domestic problems. He's a family man. So it's not true that the more power you have, the more authority you have, the more you can have things the way you want. Here's what's happened. Here's what actually happens. The more power you have, the more authority you have this sense that you can have more things the way you want. It's a false sense of hope. Just because you have people's vote doesn't mean people are willing to do what you want them to do. Haha, beat that. So I took the president because he's the most powerful person in the country. If you consider authority, that's the pinnacle, right? So then, when it's not enough to be the president of one country, they try to become a president or the ruler of a bigger country, a much larger country, land, and then they try to overtake others, right? And that's how world wars start. When your plot is not enough and you want more. Because you see, here's where the wanting more happens. It's all above the line. Because this is one person, here's the other person. If you're not trying to figure out the problem below the line, ladies and gentlemen, there are more people like this. There are countless people like this, and they all have stuff going on above the line. And above the line, all these likes are different, preferences are different, habits are different, wants and needs are different. Their sense of independence is different. Their sense of individuality is different. Their personalities are different. So then to try and mix and match and marry all these things together is a headache. You know this from having to run a family. You know how difficult it is. See, your children, they were born to you. They were born and they came out of you. They were born in your womb, ladies, and still they won't do what you want them to do. They have your DNA and still they won't do what you want them to do. You were there when they happened, and they still won't do what you want them to do. You nurtured them, you nursed them, you taught them. You taught them how to walk, you taught them how to talk, you taught them everything, and still they won't do what you want them to do. Enough said, right? If a product of your own self won't do what you want them to do, what is there to talk about anyone else? What makes you think that your husband is finally going to agree and do exactly what you want him to do? I can see it makes you laugh. But do you ever give up? Oh no. That's why sometimes I think to myself, you deserve a salute that the Buddha does not, because he gave up 2,500 years ago. You're still fighting strong. Because the Buddha said long time ago, you know what, to hell with it, I give up, I can't do this anymore, I'm just going to renounce and just go and work on myself. Whereas you lot, hey Buddha, let me show you how it's done. 2.5 millennia later, you are still going strong. Shabash, shabash. When are you going to learn, folks, that this is not a battle you can win? Like I've said it countless times before, victory begins when you accept failure. Once you accept that up here, there is no victory to be had because you have already lost. Once you accept that, you renounce. You retire. This is what retiring is. You retire. You retire to a landscape where you can actually do something about, because that's you're doing all together. Ignorance and attachment are the culprits here, not the other person, because they are up here. Where's your wife? Down here or up here? Up there. See, down here, you're all the same. It's the same product because it's the same causes. I'm going to say this a few more times because I want everyone to walk away with exactly what I mean when I try to put this up on the board. It just seems like a bit of a rough sketch with a line going across and me and they up here and some preferences, likes and dislikes, things up there. Actually, up here, ladies and gentlemen, is the answer to all of life's problems. Don't be fooled by the simplicity of this diagram. Don't be fooled by the simplicity of this diagram. This is a very profound truth. As I said, this is where you will find your problem and you will find your solution. Hand on heart, you tell me where you fight your battles, down here or up there? It depends. Sunday mornings? Sunday mornings? Below the line. After 2 o'clock on Sunday? I know we have Guru Handra sermon as well now. All right. So after 6 o'clock on Sunday then, when you head back home? 2? 8:30? The following Sunday, where do you fight your battles? Above the line. You cannot win. The sooner you realize that you cannot win, the sooner you will pick the right battle. You're trying to win a battle in vain because it is at the expense of winning the war. This is what you have sacrificed whenever you try to do that. Did you know that you were born human to be able to do this and not that? Where do animals pick their fight? Have you ever seen a dog sitting down meditating under a tree? When a dog's annoyed, what does it do? It runs after another dog, right? Because its fight is with another dog, sometimes territorial wars. You've seen that sort of thing, right? Territorial wars. Or they want the same female dog. I have a better word for it, but I'll go with this. 2 dogs want the same female dog, then you know there's a fight there. Because you see, up here, there's a problem there. This is where they pick their fights. So sometimes they'll go at each other's necks, tear parts of their ears off, maybe parts of their bodies off. Sometimes they'll end up without a limb. After a ruthless fight, a bloody fight, that's all you get. And sometimes you just have a wounded dog, and that'll be the end of it. 2 weeks later, the dog's dead. But that's all because it's fighting up here. What do you think humans were born for? Fights up here? Humans were born with the potential for wisdom and intelligence and intellect so that they could pick the right fight, pick the right battle, and that battle is down here. But you don't do that unless you come across noble association. Because what you do here is noble. What you do up here is ignoble. This is Laukika, this is Lokottara. This is the shift between your nobleness and ignobleness. It depends on where you're picking your battles. Why do you think I chose to become a monk? Why have I chosen to dedicate my life to the noble path? Because I have realized how difficult, challenging and difficult and tough it was to have become a human being in the first place. Now that I have that opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, I won't waste another second of my life doing something that is nonsensical, fruitless, useless and futile. I used to be on that side, competing with each other, trying for the top spot, trying for the prettiest girl in the class, trying for the top role at the workplace, trying to get the best plot of land, trying to build the biggest house, trying to buy the biggest car. All that is up here, where it seems everything is so different. See, we celebrate all those differences. And today in the world there are clubs, there are associations, there are societies that celebrate differences. And they cherish and they embrace differences. My point is this, that's okay, but you are nowhere near winning the problem. Because actually, the real truth is to understand that there are no differences to embrace. See, here's where they've lost the plot. I don't know whether what I'm saying to you is what you're understanding right now, but do try. See, in the world today, there are many associations, right? There are many fights for equality. Take, for example, that now if you go back in time, in history, there were the blacks and there were the whites. And there was a lot of social unrest, there were a lot of civil... I'll be careful. There was a lot of work going on to try and give people equality. And then if you go back perhaps even further, men and women, to give people a level platform, to give everyone equal rights. In other words, what people said was, let's embrace the fact that we are all different. Let's embrace differences. So once you've embraced, you still identify that they're all different, but you have embraced that. And you're okay with that. That's good, but it's not great. What's great is this. No, we are not different at all, really. We are not different. So now, what's there to embrace? Does Mother Nature treat blacks and whites differently? What do you think? Does nature treat men and women differently? Like when it rains, it only rains on the men. What do you think? When it snows, it only snows on the women. It doesn't snow on the men. Is that how nature treats us? Why is that? Do you think nature recognizes differences in the way that you and I, that people do? Nature doesn't see differences and then embraces those differences. Nature just recognizes that it's all the same. There's nothing different to embrace. I'm not standing against those social movements or things that people do, in the name of harmony and social unity and all that. Long may those endeavors continue because they're trying to do something good. I get that. Perhaps I was even part of some of those movements back then in my late time. But now, through the Dhamma, folks, I have come to a more profound understanding. It is not about embracing differences. It's about understanding that there are no differences to embrace. It's not one and the same. Do you get that? Because down here, what's different? Here's a chitta, here's a chitta. A chitta is a form of energy. Here's another form of energy. It's just another instance of energy. If you have a sense of self, which is a product of ignorance and attachment, now this chitta begins to feel that it's an entity. It's only a feeling. It's only a perception. It's not the truth. It's not that we have somehow become separate and individuals. It's only a sense of self. It's not a self. This ego is only felt within you. I can't sense your ego. If it was something more than just what your mind perceives, then I should be able to sense it from here, shouldn't I? I should simply be able to close my eyes and tell the number of egos in this room. It doesn't work like that. Your ego does not extend outwards. It is born in the mind and it lives in the mind. And it dies in the mind. It's only a mental conception. So why do you give it more place than it deserves? Why do you start building a whole persona based on your sense of ego? Why do you think that it is you? When it's not really. It's just a process that's working down here. Here's your chitta. In that chitta you have ignorance and attachment, and as a product of that ignorance and attachment, this chitta begins to sense a sense of self. The fact of the matter is, the moment this chitta passes away, which happens instantly, your sense of self dies with that. What happens next? Another chitta is born. In that new chitta, you have to create a new sense of self. Well, it happens naturally because you always have ignorance and attachment there. So, provided the causes are there, naturally there's going to be the same effect. See, let alone you being different to the next person. That is what you feel. The truth is, when you think that you are the same person that was born, you are the same person that has lived for as long as for the number of years that you are, even that is not true, ladies and gentlemen. Because in every chitta that arises in your mind, for instance, every time I do this, just as much as you have to produce this sound in your minds, because sound does not exist in the outside world, we've talked about this before. Yes? All we have here are vibrations, no sound. Sound only appears in the mind. So just as much as you have to create that sound in your mind, in each of those chittas that arise to perceive that sound, you must also create a sense of self. And then you think you are so unique. The purpose of this talk is not to somehow stop your sense of self before you leave this room. It's not to eradicate or eliminate that. That's going to take you a while. I've been trying it for the last 15 years. Still work in progress. That's going to take a while. But the purpose of this talk is to help you understand and come to your senses and realize that. Actually, realize that it is merely a product of ignorance and attachment working on your mind, and this sense of self, whenever you feel it, whenever you perceive it, is nothing more than that. Until you understand that, ladies and gentlemen, you will feel that you are who you feel you are. Can I say that again? See whether you actually understand what I mean it in the meaning that I mean it, or in the sense that I mean it. Until you understand that all there is are causes and effects, you will believe that what you feel you are is who you are. You are not. You are no one. But right now that you feel that you are someone. At the most basic and fundamental level, this someone that you feel, everyone feels the same way. That's such a joke. Can't you see how fooled we have been? At this level, that which makes you feel that you are unique is the only thing that is identical amongst all of you. Because down here, it's all the same stuff. Chittas on a bed of ignorance and attachment, giving rise to a sense of self. But that definition of sense of self, the next level of definition starts when you start going above the line. This is all to do with indoctrinations. This is all to do with indoctrinations. Things you have learnt about yourself. For example, what's your name? That. How do you know? You think it's down here or up there? Huh? Down here or up there? It's up here. Why is that? How are you so convinced that it's up there? It comes from memory, doesn't it? Because you were not born with your name. Someone had to tell you what your name was. Just like when I was ordained, they took my old name out and they gave me a new name. See, if my name was part and parcel of me, then they would not have been able to change my name. So they changed one part up here, but that didn't change any part down here. At the point of my ordination, all that changed was the part up here. I took off my lay clothes and I put on a robe. I had a little bit of hair back then still, and I shaved whatever was left, and now I have a bald head. That part changed, that part up here. Then they changed my name. I used to eat on a plate. They took the plate away and they gave me an alms bowl, which you can now fill while saying what? While saying, come on, you can do it, Thomas, you can do it. Subtle hints, huh? I'm nasty like that. So all of that changed up there. When is this going to start? With my ordination? When I say Sabba Dukkha Nissarana, Nibbāna Sachikaranantaya, Imanka Savang Dattva Pabbajeta Mambhante, all that's going to happen is up here. Changes up here. Nothing down here. The only time it's going to start changing down here is when I start on the Noble Eightfold Path. The only path that leads to the eradication of not the self, the sense of self. Why do I make that distinction? Why do I not say self and say the sense of self? Because that is all it is. It is not a self. It is a sense of self, ladies and gentlemen, a sense of self. Because it's the significance of this word, sense of self, is to get across the point to you that your mind has to create it every single time it comes into existence. And it will keep doing that. Actually, it's not doing it, it happens. No doers, only the done. It keeps on happening for as long as the causes of ignorance and attachment lay dormant in your mind. You can't stop that. You can't stop sensing that it is you who's listening to this sermon. See, right now ask yourself who it is that is listening to this sermon. Don't you get an answer? Ask yourself who's listening to the sermon. Don't you get an answer? That's the problem. You get an answer to that problem, to that question. Ask yourself the question, who's preaching the sermon? Don't you get an answer? Yes. Now imagine if an arahant came and sat down here and started preaching, and then he asked you, ladies and gentlemen, who's preaching the sermon? You still get an answer. Something that an arahant wouldn't sense for himself, you still feel about him or her. What does that tell you? Are you sensing the sense of self that is within me, or are you creating one in your own minds? One for you and one for me as well. That's why one is called Játi, the other is called Játi Dhamma. Don't get bogged down about the words, but we'll talk about those things. What I really want you to do, folks, is to come to terms first about what the truth is. My responsibility is that to ensure that you walk away with the truth. What you decide to do or decide not to do with the truth, that's up to you. Fair and square? I can't force you to contemplate the truth, can I? Why is that? Because how can I? If I could, I would, trust me. If I could, you would all be going home tonight. You'd be going back to my place tonight, not to your place. But I can't. But by being here, you have created an environment in which I am able to share the truths about the universe, the truths about the world, the truths about you. The undeniable, indisputable, absolute truths. These are the truths. These are conventional truths. These are the absolute truths. You cannot win by trying to reconcile these differences up here. You're trying to balance your books up here. You will always be in the red. Trust me. If your accounts you're doing up here, above the line, you will always be in the red. Your books will never balance. You will always be making a loss. They will never be made a profit. I mean, don't take my word for it. Ask yourselves whether you have won up here, at least once. Name one battle you have won, and won for good. I'll take an example. Right? Let's say you were arguing about something with someone. Who do you normally argue with? Yes, that person. I don't know why you call them your better half. Huh? Okay, just take that person. The person you're always arguing with, right? Say you argued about one thing, and you brought it to a close, and either one of you had it their way. Is it not just a matter of time before that argument comes back to the dining table again? Is it not just a matter of time before that argument comes back to the dining table again? Or do you just take one argument, that's it, done, sign the contract, right? We no longer talk about it, MOUs. Is that how you work at home? It's signed, done deals, put it in the box, locker, and never again does it come up for discussion. You know the truth. See, up here, you can't really solve problems. You can only suppress them. You can't solve problems up there. You can only suppress them. Because solving problems only start here. So don't fool yourself to think that you're solving problems up here. You are not. Hello? Am I getting across to you? So please stop telling yourselves that you're going to solve a few problems this weekend, because you're not. You cannot solve problems up here. All problems are solved down here. Up here, you're only suppressing them. Apparently, two nations very close to us are back at each other's throats now, right down there? How many times was that problem solved? How many times was that problem solved? How many? How many? None. That problem was never solved. Because solutions start here. For as long as one part of the world, a population of people feel that they are, say, Indians, and another group of people feel that they are Pakistanis, that's at this level. And then from there on, now they start thinking about, well, this is my land, that's your land, right? These are my people, those are your people, right? And now we have to keep whatever's, right? There are all that, politics and all sorts, all of that is above the line. So even when they go to war with each other, it's, all they can do is fight, drop bombs on each other, and kill, take lives, but the problem is never going to be solved. Only the Sásana will you find solutions to problems. How much value do you give to your Buddhist origin? I don't mean being born to Buddhist parents. Just because someone's born to Buddhist parents doesn't make them a Buddhist. What makes someone a Buddhist? It's on the board, ladies and gentlemen. This is what makes someone a Buddhist. The question as to whether they're trying to fix their problems up here or down here. So much so that even if you were a monk, and if you were solving problems up there, thinking to yourself, there are conventional problems that have to be addressed at this level. I get that. Yes, I understand that. But If you believe that your absolute solutions are up here and you don't need to worry about what's going on below the line, then sorry, that may be a monk, but he or she is not a Buddhist monk. The word Buddha in itself has the essence of what I'm talking to you about here. Buddha is to eradicate. Buddha is to eradicate ignorance and attachment. That is what Buddha is. Buddha is to eradicate the sense of self. That's what Buddha is. So to have become a Buddha is to have become someone who has eradicated the sense of self. Once you have eradicated your sense of self, ladies and gentlemen, then the whole thing collapses. This is the foundation on which you build up all these things. So once you destroy the foundation, the whole thing collapses. Now there is nothing to worry about, no preferences, no likes or dislikes. How can you say whether something agrees with you or not if you don't have a particular point of reference? If you don't have a like or a dislike, then there's no one in this world who's your friend and no one in this world who's your enemy. Don't you agree with me that the only way you can actually permanently fix the problem that they have now between India and Pakistan, the only actual solution to that problem, not by signing MOUs or, treaties and things like that. I don't mean that. Because if you need a treaty to keep at bay, keep war at bay, if you need a treaty, then it's the treaty that keeps it like that. Meaning it's not really solved. A piece of paper is what keeps the two friends. And it's like marriage. If it's a piece of paper you need, and that is why you are still together, then that's not really marriage. So there's only one solution to this problem. For as long as the Pakistanis keep on believing that they're Pakistanis and Indians keep on believing that they're Indians, now they will feel that they are different to each other, that they're unique in some way. And now to then preserve their integrity of their identity, integrity of their land, integrity of their territory, and all sorts, they will always have to protect that. Just like when you sense a sense of self, you have to protect your identity. That's why if someone calls you by a name that is not exactly what your name is, you feel offended. If someone calls you names, funny names, you feel offended. Just think about it. I remember those days when we were studying, I think at school, about this racial equality and stuff like that. Apparently, I don't want to name the country, but apparently back then, when this was really rife in society, they used to have these boards up outside restaurants. It used to say, dogs and blacks are not allowed. If I was given an opportunity to address that problem, I wouldn't be lobbying to take the boards out, because there are people who are well and truly into that game. That's not what I would be lobbying for. I'd want to talk to the people who would feel offended by that. And I would talk to them and I would ask them, why is it that they feel that they are a black person when they are just a mind? Why does the mind feel that it has to extend its identity to the body and then the color of the body becomes a part of their identities? It's all an upshoot from the sense of self. And then, you see, the moment that you think that you are a human, and then to be talked about you in the same sentence as a dog, you feel is an insult. It's kind of like saying that we are dogs, and no one likes that. Because they feel offended. Why do they feel offended? Because they feel, I'm a human being, how dare they call me a dog? No, you're not a human being to begin with. You're just a chitta. See, today we have become more tolerant as well as more sensitive to differences, and we have become more embracing and more accepting of people's differences. But for as long as we do that, ladies and gentlemen, it is only suppressing the problem. Every now and then, this problem will resurface. As I'm sure you know, keeps on happening around the world. The problem of race will keep on surfacing. The problem of men and women equality, that will keep on surfacing. Because all of these problems are up here. Until you kill the sense of identity that these minds experience, these problems will not go away forever. That's why Sásana is the only solution. The Sásana is the only solution. Nibbāna paramang sukha. No other sukha is there, no other bliss is there. What do you think the Buddha did once he came? Was he just wasting his time? Talking to people who were rife with all sorts of problems up here. Do you think the Buddha wasted his time coming into this world and talking about the eradication of a sense of self? Why didn't he just address these problems up here? Why was he not just another Martin Luther King? Why was he not just another Nelson Mandela? Why was he not just another Mahatma Gandhi? Why was he not just another Mother Teresa? Why was he a Buddha? Are they all the same? The other names I mentioned, they all were trying to fix the world up here. And for what it was worth, ladies and gentlemen, they did a mighty good job. Some of them sacrificed their lives doing it. But have the problems gone away? Have they? No. Will they? No. All they can do is suppress it. Sweep it under the carpet. That's why you cannot fix the world unless you bring in the Sambuddha Sásana. You cannot fix the world. Heaven and hell will forever exist unless you introduce the Sambuddha Sásana. Heaven up here is when these two people talk together. There's harmony, there's unity, there's love. Hell is when they're at war with each other. When there's disharmony, when there's disparity, when there's evilness, people don't talk to each other, people are at each other's necks. That's when it's hell. But hell and heaven will always be there until you introduce the Sambuddha Sásana. That's why I always say, don't undermine who you are now and who you have become now, because you are now stepping away from this world into this world. This is a whole new kettle of fish. This is a different paradigm altogether. So I urge you, ladies and gentlemen, in your roles, in your professions, in your careers, as whoever you are in society, there will be a part for each of you to play up here. I'm not suggesting that you shrug your shoulders to any of that. Do that, it's okay. But please understand that your salvation does not lie up here. It cannot be found up here. You will either have to take this party or this party. It's always sides, either this side or that side. Either you'll be fighting against drugs or you'll be doing drugs. One or the other. Who's right? Who's wrong? Either you'll be fighting for children's rights or you'll be the one, That's the thing. Who's right, who's wrong? For this world to exist, both sides must exist. You can't have good unless there's bad. How can you have good without bad? Did you know that you can only be a good person because there's someone else who's a bad person? Thanks to them, you're a good person. So send them a Christmas card next time round. You're only good because relative to them, you're good. Relative to you, they're bad. A good doctor is a good doctor because there are good diseases. Don't you think so? What makes a doctor a really good doctor? When he can treat some seriously ill patients, meaning the patient has to be seriously ill, meaning there has to be some really bad diseases. That's what qualifies, that's what gives him the platform to become a really good doctor. So you see, half of his paycheck he should be giving to the bugs. That's what I mean. Up here, it's only convention, who's right and who's wrong, what's good and what's bad. It's all convention up here. Once again, I'm not suggesting that you should shrug your shoulders and it doesn't matter which side you pick. Because if you pick one side, you earn merits. If you pick the other side, you earn demerits. Pick the right side and you will now get an elevator to come down here. Pick the wrong side, it will take you light years to come down here. The right side is the side that gives joy and makes life easy for others. The wrong side is where you are the problem to other people. You are the one who takes other people's happiness away from them. That's when you pick the wrong side. It's when you do the 10 unmeritorious deeds, you're on the wrong side. When you do the 10 meritorious deeds, you're on the right side. But once again, both those things are on this side of the line. My invitation to you folks is to start stepping down into this realm, the Lokottara realm. Step away from the mundane as much as you can. How much of my life have I put into this? 100%. How much of your life? You've got to decide. But here's the thing. Matters not how much of your life you have put towards it. Up here, you will never win. Today you're on this side, tomorrow you're on that side. Today you'll be fighting against drugs, tomorrow you will be born to a drug lord. Just imagine if that were to happen. You die and then you are born in your next life as a child to a drug lord. Now you are part of the cartel. Because that's what you grow up with. It's not your fault. It's all indoctrinations. These are all indoctrinations. So the fight that you picked earlier, the side, now you're on the other side. So what are you doing now? You're reversing everything you've done in your previous life. It's all indoctrinations. Just imagine this, in this life you were born to a vegetarian family. You were born to a vegetarian family. And they indoctrinated you that vegetarianism is a really good thing and you have to be vegetarians, and you started lobbying for vegetarianism and you went around like fighting for that and trying to stop cruelty to animals and trying to close down the abattoirs and all that, right? So that's what you did. And then you lived your life, 80 long years, good life, but complete vegetarian, and then you died. And then you are born again. Now you are born as a son of an animal farmer. And then they indoctrinate you that this is good, this is how we make a living. And animals are put in place for us so that as human beings to live off of them. So what's wrong with killing a few animals? Let's do it. Come on, my son, says the father to his child. So right from a very young age, the child sees that killing is that's how my family makes a living. So that's what he starts doing. Now, See, in the previous life, he was fighting against that. In this life, he's fighting for it. So, when is he going to win? See, everything you're doing up here, you will undo in your next life. What is life is not a joke. Everything you do in this life, you will undo in your next life. What's the point then? Today you'll say, let's become teetotalers. No to alcohol, no to smoking, no to drugs, this, that and the other. That's because you were indoctrinated that way. In the next life you are born to a family, an environment where they do all that. That's what you grow up with, that's what you see doing, your parents doing, your friends doing, your neighborhood, that's what you see, and so you're going to grow up with that. And now you're going to be the same person, or you're going to be the person that's going to fight for it. In the previous life, you were the person fighting against it. Now you're trying to undo what you did. Who's the joker now? That's the thing. How do you win this game? It's a bit like playing chess against yourself. Just imagine you are bored, right? No one else at home wants to play with you. So what do? You take the table, lay those, what do you call them? Pieces, not the black pieces, the white pieces. You sit on the white side because you have to start first. Huh? And the pawn moves 2 squares forward. Right, what do you do then? You get up, walk around the table, and you play. Now who's going to win, who's going to lose? Such is life up here. This is the life that you are living, ladies and gentlemen. Please open your eyes and realize what you're doing to yourselves. This is what you're doing with your lives. Unless and until you start coming down here, and then begin to realize that all of this baggage, all of this persona, all of this nonsense is merely overhead on top of what is actually going on down here. The sense of self. The sense of self is what destroys you. Right at the core, from the core, it extends out and it completely destroys your peace of mind. Greed is an extension of the sense of self. Why do you have greed? Think about it for a second. Why is there greed? When you have a sense of self, now you exist. Once you exist, you can now then be indoctrinated about things that are good for you, things that you must have, things that you ought to possess. Those can only be placed on top of you if you have a sense of self. Then you look at the other person. They have something I don't have, so I must have it. First you start with jealousy, and then you have a sense of greed, and now you try to obtain what you don't have. To do that, if you have to take something that doesn't belong to you, then you go ahead and do it. That's what I mean. Your battle should be down here. So, as individuals who have to live a lay life, I know some of you are not able to step away from that. Right? You are already up here and too many bonds up here. It's an intricate web that you have already woven for yourselves that you cannot now step away from it, because if you do, you will be entangled and smothered by the web itself. You'll be suffocated by the web itself, the web that you have woven for yourself so much that you cannot now step away from it. Before you even start coming down here, they'll pull you by the leg, pull you back up. Hey, where do you think you're going? You signed the dotted line. Stay with me. It's now very difficult. For some, I don't mean all, but for some. People will be expecting that of you. And even, there are rules laid down, even in the Sásana. Remember the first time Buddha brought a young child into the Sásana? It was his own lay son. And a couple of weeks later, what did the king say? Oh, please, Venerable Sir, please don't do that. Please only ordain a young child with permission from their parents. See, now just put your, get into the Buddha's shoes, although he didn't wear any. Get yourself into the Buddha's shoes and try to imagine the situation there. Does he not know that this King Suddhodana is only speaking out of ignorance and vanity? Does he not know that? Because Suddhodana is here, the king, he senses a sense of self, and he thinks that Rahula is his grandson, all in Suddhodana's mind, which is not true. It's only a sense of self, but yet the Buddha accepted his request. Why? Because the Sásana must exist. This oasis must exist in the middle of this desert. That's where all oases exist, in the middle of a desert, right? So in the same manner, the Sásana must exist in this worldly setup. Because if you go completely against the world's system, if you try and create complete and utter chaos, then the world will not allow the Sásana to exist. The Sásana will perish. That's why the Buddha instructed monks, us as well, always adhere to the norms and customs of the land. Obey the laws of the land. Was always an advice the Buddha gave the monastics, because otherwise the Sásana would perish. But don't you think that the king or the Buddha, our king, when he had agreed to the king's request, he knew that from this day on forward, children who have ample potential to attain their salvation would still not be able to do that because they don't have their parents' consent. The Buddha knew that, but he had to accept that. Otherwise the Sásana would not have thrived. Is it fair or unfair? The jury's out on that. It's the way it had to be. But as a result of that, to this day, we cannot ordain a child, someone who's under the age of 18, unless they have their parents' consent, or we have their parents' consent. Is it fair or unfair? And I'm not asking from the parents in the room, because you will be biased. Why? Because you will be just like King Suddhodana. In your minds, you'll have a sense of self that's created in there, and your sense of self will tell you that you are the mother and you are the father. And once you experience that sense of self, that you are the mother, you are the father, you want to preserve that now because you like feeling a mother or a father. You like that, you enjoy that feeling. You like it. And now that you like it, for you to be a mother, for you to be a father, you have to have your kid with you. Someone has to call you dad, because that's what you enjoy. You enjoy being addressed as dad. You enjoy being addressed as mom. Because you like that, because you enjoy that, the poor kid has to suffer. Even if the kid was born to attain Nibbana, now they cannot until they reach age 18, because they have to get your consent. All because of the sense of self. Right or wrong? You decide. That young prince was Rahula. He was to become an arahant. Don't you think it was just good fortune? Actually, it happened later on when Prince Nanda was taken later. Don't you think it was good fortune that both Rahula and Nanda were taken into the Sásana before the King Suddhodana had anything to say about it? I mean, he's the king of the land, right? The Buddha would not step out of kilter, because they would have been, perhaps, other problems would have happened. Now, the king being the Buddha's father and all that is another matter. But he had to set a rule, a code of discipline for the rest of the Sásana to follow. But the thing is this, These were two young men who were born to become arahants because they had such merits behind them. That was their paramita. Now, don't you think there may be young children amongst yourselves? Maybe your child was born to become an arahant. Do you think that's entirely impossible? How dare you undermine your child that way? Just because you weren't born to become an arahant doesn't mean your child wasn't. But you as a mother, you as a father, you like feeling that you are the mother. You really like feeling that you are the father. So, when the child comes up to you and says, Amma, I want to become a monk. Meh. Why? Sense of self. See, ignorance and attachment always wins. Because of your ignorance, your child will suffer. The opportunity that he or she had to become an arahant in this life, actually, it's not about becoming an arahant, it's about being free from suffering. That's all we're talking about. You can call it becoming an arahant, you can call it becoming whatever. That's not the thing here. It's about being free from suffering, ladies and gentlemen. You know, having become a mother, having become a father, having lived for the last 45 to 50 years of your life, you know that the path that you took does not take you to freedom from suffering. And still you want your kid to walk in your footsteps, don't you? It is not to become an arahant your kid wants. It's to be free of suffering. Is that so unfair? If you can't offer it, should he not seek it from somewhere else? If you can't offer it to him, should your child not seek it somewhere else? If you can, then great. Go ahead and do it. But if you can't, then should you not give your child that opportunity? Just think about it in any other way. Right? There are many parents who, they know when they were younger, they didn't have as many opportunities for education, right? They didn't have a good start in life maybe. They didn't have the right environment, maybe didn't have the right prospects. So what do? When they have a child, they make a determination to themselves, don't they? Right? I will never let my child go through what I went through. Pretty much every parent here will have been the same. Even if you had the best of opportunities, you still want your child to have 10 times better than that. Yes or no? Parents in the house? Well, there you go. Your child wants to be free of suffering. That's all he wants. That's all she wants. You have not yet been able to achieve that. But when your child comes and asks you for that, you don't apply the same common sense that you do when your child comes and asks for a good education. That you can have, not this. You think that's fair? You think that's reasonable? Ultimately, I have to ask you, what gives you the right to decide whether your child can be free of suffering or not? They were born in their own right to find freedom below the line. That's why they were born human. Alas, were they born to the wrong parents? Is that where they went wrong? Is that the difference between your child and my parents? I was born to the right parents, so they let me. But your child was born to you. Is that why they don't have the right? They don't have the opportunity? Anyway, I sidetrack. Guru Handru, go away. But the same concept applies whether you talk about children, your other halves, partners, fiancés, whatever the case might be. See, when you form relationships up here, it tends to be like that, doesn't it? When you form relationships up here, you want them to be cemented, never to change. For as long as I want them to be in my life, they have to be in my life. When I decide they don't no longer have to be in mine, they can go fly a kite. Isn't that how relationships work? Not be mine forever, be mine until I want you to be gone. Very selfless, these relationships, aren't they? Aren't they? Very selfless, these relationships are, aren't they? Be mine until I want you gone. And when I no longer want you in my life, why are you still here? Why haven't you packed your bags yet? See? There's two things I want you to take from this. One is, do you want to do that to the person you love? Is that what true love really is? Number two, is that what you believe a relationship should be? And do you think relationships are as sacred as you think they are? I'll tell you what a real relationship should be. Among human beings, I mean. Because between other creatures, it doesn't matter. Because they can't go this way. They're all stuck up here, in the Dugati. Sugati starts here. Here's what a real relationship should be. One, if ever there is a request, a desire to solve the ultimate problem, you let them. Please feel to disagree with me. That's okay, I'm still right. If ever there's a request to solve the ultimate problem because they are sick and tired to the back teeth, sick to the back teeth, trying to fix problems here, it doesn't work. And therefore they want to try and actually put take a real solution to this problem. If they want it, you let them. Number two, if they don't know about it, you encourage them. You show them, you guide them, you remind them, you tell them, honey, did you know that there's a better way than the life that we're living right now? But your ego will not let you do that. Why? Why is your ego not going to let you do that? Because for as long as you sense a sense of self, and you like to feel that you are the spouse, you are the husband, you are the wife, you are the mother, you are the father, you are the child, whoever, in the other part of the relationship, for as long as you like to experience that, you want the other person to be with you until you've had enough of them. That's why once I told you, society treats you like a tissue paper. They will use you until they are done with you, and then once they are done, you end up in the trash can. Otherwise, how fair is it for a woman or a man to have committed his or her entire life to another person, let's say for 25 long years, and then for the man or the woman to find interest in another person, and then to say, you know what, that's it, I don't want any more of you, you can just go away, get out of my life, I will give you sustenance, I'll give you some pay for that, right? But I don't want you anymore in my life, I've found someone else to make me happy. How is that fair? How is that reasonable? You may have gone through it, or you may know someone who's gone through that. How is that reasonable? The only way you can justify that is, here's a sense of self, and here's the logic behind it. Here's why it's the way it is. Not right or wrong. Here's why it's the way it is, and remember, hurt people hurt people. There's a sense of self. At the beginning, when it all started, when it was just a casual affair, or just an affection, and nothing more than that, they envisaged a future with you. Their sense of self was so elated by the promise that they could spend their future with you. And so they wanted you for themselves. That is this sense of self I'm talking about. They like to hear endearing words from you and repeat the same back to you. And so that relationship flourished. It went from one thing to the other, and soon enough you became husband and wife. But, as you know, familiarity breeds contempt. That which was only a promise, that which was something that was to look forward to every weekend, every other day of the week, now became very familiar. Whenever you wanted it, it was always there. Whenever you wanted him or her, he or she was always there. The sights, the sounds, the smells, the taste and the touch, nothing had to be waited for, nothing had to be longed for. It was always there, ready, available and offered. So there was no time to build up any vexation of any sort. And therefore, without the vexation, there's no pleasure. So there was just a relationship, but the pleasure was gone. So the only purpose of that relationship, so it seems, the only purpose of the relationship, which was to get some kind of pleasure out of it, and I don't mean in a bad way. Don't take this as a bad way, because ultimately that's what the mind's looking for, pleasure. Pleasure doesn't necessarily mean physical, if you like. It's not just in that way. Sight of it, sound, smell, all these things. Endearing words, to be treated with respect, to be treated with dignity. All of these things are part of that. That was not happening. So then they got fed up. And someone else came and started dropping a few furtive glances. That's where it starts. A few winks here and a few winks there. Here a wink here and here a wink there. Here a wink, there a wink, there a wink, wink. And then what happened? Old MacDonald had a farm. So then their sense of self wanted that, but it was not coming from you, because that pleasure was not experienced from you, and they realized that it was going to come from someone else. Then their loyalty was replaced from you to the other person. Just shifted, just like that, overnight. Just happened like that. And then your association was not something they began to look forward to. They were looking forward to the day where they could be done with you. They had dirt in their hands, they found a good tissue paper, they had finished wiping their hands, and now the hand was clean. And now it was time to move on to a fresh piece of tissue. So it was time for you to move to the bin. Once again I ask you, do you think these relationships are as sacred as you think they are? Because relationships are all up here, ladies and gentlemen. It's all up here. Please remember this for now and for the rest of your lives. All of these relationships, as glorified as they may seem, as wonderful as people might make it seem and make it sound, right? Please understand this. It's all built up on a foundation of lies. The lie of a sense of self. Because it's all built on a foundation of lies, it's only a matter of time. These relationships are so fragile. All of this is indoctrinations. preferences, likes and dislikes, which can be changed just like that. You see something on TV, now you want that. Next time you read something in a magazine, now you want that. How many times have people who've been living 10, 15, 20 years in their relationships, and then a young girl joined into the office. Now she's the new model. I know I would be surprised if, knowing what I know today about how the mind works, and remember, none of you are special, because all there is raga, dvesha, moha, ignorance and attachment. Knowing what I know today about how the mind works and all these processes, I'd be surprised, right, if 9 out of 10 married couples were loyal and faithful to their other halves. You are the 1 out of the 10. So relax. You're okay. Okay, your husband's very loyal to you. Your wife is very loyal to you. I'm talking about everyone else's. Knowing what I know about the mind today, because the mind does not seek your association, the mind seeks pleasure. So much so that when it believes that a sense of self is what gives it ultimate pleasure, it will go to the extent of insanity to get it. You can't sense a sense of self unless your mind goes insane. So these are micro insanities that each chitta goes through. Each chitta goes through that. It's the human condition. I'm not saying you're bad or terrible, or I'm not finger pointing at anyone, because there's no one to finger point at. But this is the nature of the mind. Once the mind has a sense of self, ladies and gentlemen, it's only a matter of time. You can do as much as you can when you bring up your children, right? When you educate them, when you teach them virtues and values and things like that, you can teach them, right? But it's not good. You have to be faithful, you have to be loyal, you have to be trustworthy, right? When you dedicate yourself to someone, you have to do that 100%. Right? You can't have flings on the side. It's bad, it's wrong, you can't do that. Yes, right and wrong is all fair until you start vexing. Then, just imagine this if you can, right? It's bad to pass wind in public, don't you? But what happens when you really can't hold it in anymore? I'm giving you a real life example. It's bad to do that, right? And sometimes it might be very smelly, and then it's going to be very foul, and people are not going to like it. Yeah? Let's talk practical, real stuff. We're all human beings, you and I, right? This is stuff that happens to everyone, right? But when it gets really difficult to hold it in, say you're in public transport or something, you can't get off, and the next stop is another 20 miles ahead. And now it's really, you really need it now. What do you do then? You put it into a shopping bag or something? And wait until you get home. You can't do that. So what happens? In the end, you relieve yourself. The same thing happens here. All these values, all these virtues, all these good manners, courtesies, all of these are, they're all good. They all go out the window the moment the mind passes a certain threshold. Once it goes beyond a certain level of vexation, ladies and gentlemen, there's no right and wrong. There's no justice. If I ask someone in the audience to bend your finger backwards, right? And it's bad to scream in a sermon, in an audience. But if someone there were to bend your finger backwards or prick you with a needle, how much self-discipline and control are you going to have to not scream? There's a Swami Nasi here who's doing a sermon. But if someone were to prick your bottom with a needle, what's going to happen? You're going to scream. At least momentarily, you're going to be ouch, or something like that. Because that's what happens when your mind vexes. The problem is this: if you think that you're special in some way, and this does not apply to you, that's the problem. Everyone grows old and dies, ladies and gentlemen. Don't think you're Santa Claus. These rules apply universally. That's why the Buddha was not born for Buddhists. The Buddha came into this world to help everyone who has a mind. Who in this room has one? Well, there you go then. He had to spare the four-legged creatures because they don't have the intellectual power, they don't have the intelligence, they don't have the wisdom to understand what he had to say. That's why he had to spare them. Otherwise he would have. Monkeys don't get this stuff. Donkeys don't understand this. Sometimes there are people who behave like that. Not you, I'm just saying. The Buddha did not come into this world to give his philosophy to Buddhists. He came into this world to give his teaching to everyone who has a mind that suffers. Because suffering can be eliminated, it can be terminated, it can be uprooted, it can be extinguished once and for all, but you have to start here, not up there. So the day you decide that enough is enough up here is the day your victory will begin. Anicca, Dukkha and Anatta is what's going to help you come out of this sense of self. The three characteristics, Anicca, Dukkha and Anatta, it is to help you come out of this sense of self. Up here you don't need Anicca, Dukkha and Anatta. Here you need politics. Here you need religion. Here you need economy. Here you need business. Here you need fashion. Here you need banking, commerce, IT. All of that up here. Construction, all of that up here. This is the whole world up there. People transact up here. People form relationships up here. People do business up here. Down here, we're all the same. We just need one solution. That's why, in that regard, we are all the same, ladies and gentlemen. It's not about embracing differences. It's about recognizing that there are no differences to embrace. Each and every one in this room is a chitta, and a chitta that has been hijacked by ignorance and attachment, and as a result of that, each chitta here senses a sense of self. That sense of self is identical between each and every one of you. This is what sets you apart. Nonsense is what sets you apart. So it's not about embracing differences. So the moment people start talking about, let the Hindus and the Buddhists and the Muslims and the Christians, let them all come together and work together and be in harmony and peace. I'm like, you do all that, I'll come later. Because that's not my purpose here. I'm not undermining their efforts. I'm not saying that that's bad or that's wrong. Those efforts are helpful in some way. Helpful in some way. There are activists who are working hard. They're working really hard to do such things. There are constitutions that are written to help harmonize society and all that. I understand that. Religious leaders, they come together, convocations, conventions, whatnot, right? And they do that and try and harmonize the whole system. But that's not my cup of tea. How can I sit in a room when I know that everyone in the room is speaking gibberish? They don't understand the same language that I do. They don't speak the same language that I do. How can I sit in a room like that? My contribution is different, because what my teachers have taught me is something a little bit different. Because I subscribe to the Buddha's teaching where he says there are no differences. There are no differences. That's why nature does not treat you differently based on your gender, based on your race, based on your religion, based on your cultural values. Nothing. Gender, or rather nature, does not discriminate. So there is nothing to unite. Everything is united. There is nothing to unite. It's just to accept that there is nothing that sets us apart. Do you understand what I mean, ladies and gentlemen? There's nothing to unite. It's just to accept that these differences are only perceived differences. Then what is there to unite? So should we have religious harmony? Maybe, yes, but I'm not the one who's going to be attending that, because I'm not here for religious harmony. Should we have racial harmony? Yes, but that's not my cup of tea, that's not what I'm here for. Should we have equality, gender equality, to do away with gender disparity? Should we be activists in the whole LGBTQ conversations? I'm saying yes, maybe, but that's not my role here. My question is to ask any individual who comes forward and says, I am of this gender, I am of this orientation, should I get along with the other groups? My question to you is, what makes you think that you are gay? What makes you think that you are bisexual? What makes you think that you are heterosexual? Where is your sexuality in any of this? You're just a chitta. It's a different world. These talks will not be popular. That much I know. Because it is not for everyone. It is not for everyone because people cannot transcend their way of thinking and come out of their little box in which they feel isolated, segregated, right? Because their identity is such an important part for them, ladies and gentlemen. Such an important part. Nationalistic views, political views, social views. I mean, try thinking about taking this philosophy to a country, maybe like, say, India, where caste is a huge thing for them. You know, it runs deep and into every part of society. It's the very fabric that weaves the whole society together. The threads that weave the whole society together. Try to take this concept to them. They'll probably banish me. And they won't have me back. Maybe. Like they don't take us back into the prisons anymore. You know what happened. Maybe we went to the prisons and we explained to them that prison is in your mind. It's not the four walls that surround you. As long as you don't have a desire to be outside, then you have the best of both worlds in here, because you get free meals, you get free shelter, you get free clothes, you get free medicines, and you're not bothered by your, pesky neighbors and your relations, relatives and all that. So, people started nodding their heads frantically as they started to get the gist of what I was trying to tell them. And they said, no, you don't have to come again to the prison. Because I couldn't take them out of prison, but I could take the prison out of them. If there's someone who wishes to see and you put them in a dark room, that's what you call a prison. take away their desire to see, it's no longer a prison. That's what I'm talking about. I cannot change the world, ladies and gentlemen, but I can change you for the better. I can't make the world a better place for you, but I can make you a better person for this world. The answers lay in the Buddha Sásana. Nowhere else have I ever found anything even closely resembling this truth. No wonder he was the Buddha. No wonder. This is your heritage. Don't forget that ever. Don't turn your back to the Sambuddha Sásana. This is your heritage. Your heritage is the Four Noble Truths. Your heritage is the answer to all of life's problems. You have been so blessed to be crowned with the Four Noble Truths. I cannot express to you in words how fortunate I am for what I have been able to achieve with my life. To have come into the Sri Sambuddha Sásana, and not only just there, to have committed and devoted my entire life to it and have become a monk in the Buddha's robe. To stand for the Four Noble Truths and to embody it, to be a walking symbol of that. I have no words to express how grateful I am for all the merits and for all the teachers and for all the Sásana and the devotees who helped me to focus on my practice. All of you, I have no words to express my gratitude. Because I understand how rare it is, how scarce this is. How much of a struggle it must have been for me to come all this way through samsara and to finally discover what I'd been looking for. Whereas all my life in samsara I would have spent doing useless, fruitless, futile, unnecessary, but unavoidable battles in this fool's paradise. That's why I urge you, ladies and gentlemen, don't wait until it's too old. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until you're too weak. Don't wait until you become too busy. Don't wait until the pull of responsibility lay heavy on your shoulders. Don't wait till then, because you never know. Tomorrow, something will happen. There'll be a new arrival to the family. Someone will propose to you and you can't say no. Someone will start up a new business and they will invite you and you will need the money and you can't say no. Someone in the family will get a cancer and now it will become your responsibility to do all that. Sometimes you fall ill. You get run over by a bus and then you are paralyzed for the rest of your life. Life is but a mere drop of dew on the edge of a blade of grass. Never underestimate that. The fragility of the opportunity that you have. The Buddha Sásana is not here forever. Heck, you're not here forever. It is said that the Buddha Sásana will thrive for the next 2,500 years, but you won't stick around. So what good is it to you? It's good for everyone. It's good for the it's good for everyone. It's good for the masses. It's good for the general. But to you as an individual, what good is it? That's why I always urge you, right? Don't stick to the Sunday mornings. Because there's no point doing any of this. To you, there's no point. The world expects this from you, yes, I get that. These are your transactions with the world in which you live. You have to do them so that people accept you. They let you be. If you didn't do these things, they wouldn't let you be. Yes? These are those social transactions. social contracts, if you like. You have to do that if you want to be there. But you're only there, or you only have to do that because you want to be there. If you want to be there, you're going to have to do all that. But if you can shift yourself as fast as you possibly can, as quickly as you can, if not physically, at least mentally. The other day I suggested to you, if you have enough to feed yourself and your family, then don't start up another business. This is bad business advice, I get that. Goes completely against some of the things I used to say in my youthful years. When I was younger, I used to give talks to people and encourage and entice people to become entrepreneurs. To not rest on their laurels and get up on their feet and do enterprise. I used to talk about those things. But now I say, don't start up the next business if you have enough to make ends meet. Forgive me for saying, but if you've had enough children, then but if you feel that you are not going to come into the Sásana, then make as many as you like and send a few of them to the Sásana. Give the gift of freedom to your loved ones. Give them the gift of freedom. Give them the gift of freedom. Don't hold them back. Just because you made a wrong choice, just because they made a wrong choice, just because the two of them made a wrong choice back when you were not as wise. Don't make them have to regret because they were not wise back then and they chose the wrong person, because had it been someone else, they might have led them. Do you understand what I mean? Remember, what you give is what you get. If you let someone make that jump to help them walk the path to freedom, then such paths will be available to you when you're ready. I have today been blessed with this opportunity because I know for a fact that I would have helped others to walk this path. It is only what you get, or it is only what you give, you get back. And that is not some kind of magic or wizardry. It is logic, it is pure logic. I'll explain it to you another day. How it is what you give that you get back, and the karma and vipaka, the way that they work to make that happen. Whenever you do a karma, you generate your vipaka. It's that vipaka that comes back to you. So what you give has to be what you get. You cannot enjoy anyone else's vipaka or suffer for anyone else's vipaka. You know, I can give you nice stories, ladies and gentlemen. I can sing nice poems and give you nice tales, but ultimately, let's be honest, whatever you do up here in this space is just a waste of time. Yes, you are fulfilling social contracts, yes, but to what avail? This is not the first time, and this is not the last time that you were a good wife. This is not the first time or the last time that you have been a good husband. This is not the first or the last time that you have been a good mother. I know you are. I'm certain you are. But this is not the first time, and this will not be the last time unless you realize that being a mother is only a product of your own making. This is just you going through suffering and relief from suffering and suffering again and relief from suffering and suffering again and release from suffering. I can repeat this to you 100 times, at least until as long as I'm here or someone else is here. But you know, these 100 times is not what's going to make the difference for you. It's the one time you decide to take action. The 100 times you listen to this is going to do nothing for you. The one time you decide to take action, that's the time that's going to make a difference in your life. Prove me wrong. Listen to this 100 times, but take no action. What's going to happen to you? Nothing. Because knowledge is not power. Knowledge put into action is power. Now you know the truths. You can sit on it if you like. Or you can do something with the truths. Let me read this letter to you. This is not really actually a letter. This was written by one of our Anagáriká daughters. She's only 14 years of age. 14, I think, almost 15. She lived the best part of her life in Australia, along with her family. Really well-off people, really well-to-do, very successful, both mother and father. And luck would have it that one day they came across the Buddha Sásana. So they decided that one day they would come into the Sásana. It didn't happen overnight, of course, but over time, as they started to listen to the teaching, the truth, they didn't just sit on it. What did they do? They took action. So fast forward a few years, this girl, she's very bright as well. She was one of the top performing students in her school in Australia back there. And she has been showing her colors ever since she arrived at the monastery. I know that this is one of those children who will go on to really be a star in the Sásana. Where else should we need stars? I mean, what's the point of being a star up there? Here you have tissue papers. If you want to be a star here. Because then you are a star to other people. You can shine light on them. So, as part of the educational program, you know we have a school at the monastery, run by, I do a job, you know that, right? I make money. I do no such thing. The school is run by our devotees, yourselves. The teachers are our monks, Anagárikas. They are mainly the teachers. So they bring their education, their qualifications, and their skill, and their compassion. And that is what they do for merits, to serve the Sásana. Because they know that one day these children, with the education that they get about life up here, coupled with the wisdom that they get down here from Guru Swami Nohanse and their respective spiritual teachers, now you get the best of both worlds. So then they can go on to talk to people about this. Otherwise, it would be like them living in a very isolated world. I can talk to you like this because I have been there. So I know what it feels like to have had that experience. But I'm not proud about the fact that I was there. The advantage of me having been there is to you, not to me. Don't you agree with me on that? The advantage of me having been there is to you because I can relate to your experiences, but not to me because I wasted my life there. A good 20 odd years I wasted up there. Had I had the chance to start when I was 6, 7, 8, 14, I would have given anything for that opportunity. But my merits only began to come to me and manifest themselves when it did. So these children then, we encourage young children, young people to come and join our ranks because we don't want to waste precious life up here. But at the same time, once they come in here, we want to share a little bit about what goes on out there. So they know how the world works, how people suffer, the atrocities that people have to endure, the stuff that they have to go through. And so one day, they could sit on this seat and talk to you, to your children, and so on. So, to avail them of that exposure, that education, we have a school at the monastery, run by your kind and generous support. And so, she's one of the students at the school, naturally. So at the school, from once a year or so, they go on an educational trip. Again, sponsored by the parents of the children as well as other devotees. Because with our monastery, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter whose child it is. And I say this with such pride and honor because we always work down here. When you work down here, it doesn't matter whose child it is. But when you start going up here, now you've already gone past the me, my child, and now what do I do for them? That's lay mindset. That's the lay mindset. But that's why for you, it doesn't matter for whose child you support. When you come and lay your offerings here, sometimes for Noble International School, sometimes for the Noble Hearts, the Children's Child Development Center we have, it doesn't matter to you that it's not your child. How is that possible? Because we are talking about the ultimate truths. That's why it's possible. That's why I say credit to your wisdom, credit to your understanding, credit to your comprehension. So anyhow, once a year or so, they go on an educational trip. And this year, she was able to join that trip. This is her first year with us at the monastery. And then she'd written an account of her experience. Now, she didn't know that I was going to get hold of this. But she'd written an account of this, and I don't think anyone knew. Or she didn't think that anyone would get hold of this, but I think one of her teachers had seen it. And they thought that they should pass on to their teacher and their teacher and their teacher, and finally it ended up with me. So when I read this, I thought I would like to share this with you. I'm going to read this verbatim. So this will have a personal account on this young lady's experience. Moments where she felt that she did not perform at her best, and other moments where she felt that she was very happy and proud to be in the Sásana. So there's going to be a mix of everything in here, right? So she doesn't know that I'm going to read this out. Now you'll ask me, how dare you, Swaminatha? Should you pry into other people's personal affairs? What personal affair? She's one of my daughters. I'm not going to tell you her name or anything of that sort, but what I want you to be is listen to this and ask yourselves, is this not the kind of thing you would like for your children to have? And is this not the kind of thing you would have wished for yourself if you had had this chance when you were younger? The Trip is the title of this script. As soon as we climbed onto the bus at 3:30 a.m., I felt excited. I've been on many trips before to various countries, but I thought this trip was somehow special. For the first time, I got to go with people my age. It was in the first few hours that I felt especially fascinated by the outside, seeing all the shops with various foods on display and the way the sunrise lit up the awakening town reminded me of my lay life and Australia. So this is the first time she's been on a trip in Sri Lanka. Before the trip, I never thought that I'd fall so quickly and easily at the feet of the lay world. But turns out not 20 minutes had passed and I was already struggling. I couldn't figure out a way in that moment to apply the Dhamma, but afterwards I was able to, thinking about just how much every advertisement and nice dress speaks for the mental suffering of the people that created them. Are you going to suggest that your children think the same when they go on trips? See, this is what I mean, ladies and gentlemen. 14 years of age, this young girl, she's talking about how when she first went out in that bus, she started seeing things around her and then she was taken up. She was consumed by her own defilements. But soon enough, she was snapped back into reality. The teachings of her teachers, they came back to her, and then she started to realize, good Lord, all of these things are a representation of how much people actually suffer. I thought I'd get attached to the places or the lifestyle, but I ended up also really liking the bus ride, probably because it mimicked my lay life. During my lay life, I spent most of my time eating, sleeping, and watching TV whenever I felt like it. What do you do here? However, after becoming an Anagáriká, I had to be on the go all the time, waking up early only to go to school, listen to the sermons, and do doctrine discussions. But on the bus, I was able to look out the window and enjoy the view, sleep, and eat the food they gave us every now and again. So, one other thing I wanted to highlight or point out to you, we're not creating robots at the monastery. They're very much the same living, breathing human beings that they were when they first came into the monastery, ladies and gentlemen. This is not about brainwashing. It's about opening their eyes to reality. We don't expect that any of our children will go through this realization overnight. Is that something you expect? I don't. They've got a whole lifetime to do that in. If that realization's happened for this little daughter, when she's now only 14, when she's 44, so be it. If it happens when she's 80, so be it. We're not in any rush. You can't rush the truth into someone. You have to give them time. But time must be given in the right environment. Otherwise, just like a wound that does not get a treatment, that does not get its treatment, that does not get a dressing, starts to fester. That's what happens to young minds when they are left out in society, left to be victimized by evil association, ignorant association, because you can't always watch out for them. If ever these children have to use the internet for whatever they have to do for school, there's another senior Mahatmya who's watching over them, sitting by their side to make sure that they only visit what they have to. How can you do that with your children at home? You can't. And they don't carry a mobile phone. Because once you give a child a mobile phone, you've given the whole world to them. That's why it's all about the environment. We are nurturing them one day at a time, and let them hatch when they're ready. Let me continue. But it's only now that I can see why Guru Thero tells us to stand up when we feel sleepy, to do something to stay awake and alert during a sermon. Because a Sásana only happens once. At least we will only get an opportunity as great as this once. From a 14-year-old. The chances of getting the life we have now is next to impossible. So, if the impossible has happened, what do we do then? This is a question. I realize the answer is definitely not to sleep, but the bus ride isn't the only place I struggled with. After becoming an Anagáriká, I thought I'd never get to eat an ice cream again. They only get to eat what you offer them. So you don't offer ice cream, they don't get to eat ice creams. But don't worry, everyone bring ice cream, okay? Yet on the first day we got ice cream. Not only that, we got yummy kimula banis, fried rice, cashew curry, a cold soda, and hoppers, all of my favorite foods. So they were taken to where they rested were with the families of some of our other monks and Anagárikas and Anagárikas who are spread around the country. So when our children travel, they take rest in those locations. So it's our own parents and they look after them and make sure that they are safe and well looked after. Especially because I didn't expect to receive these. I think the pleasure was greater. See, that's the important part, ladies and gentlemen. I don't mind these young children enjoying an ice cream. I don't mind that. Let them. Even if later on, even if a day later, a week later, they stopped and think for a moment, hang on a second. That was pleasure because I was vexing beforehand. That's what Guru Thore has been trying to tell us. See, wisdom, that's what we need. Doesn't have to be instant, as long as, see, it's not the rabbit that won the race, the tortoise. I think the pleasure was greater. But something my teacher told me before I left helped me apply the Dhamma. Now, the day before they departed, their spiritual teachers got all the children together, and they explained what was going to happen, what they would see out through the window, what they would hear, what they would smell, what they would taste, and how to apply the doctrine, how to apply the Dhamma in their experiences. See, so it's not about isolating themselves from the world, because you can't attain Nibbana like that. It's about teaching them how to understand the world, and then exposing them to the right degree. One step at a time. That's why this system works, ladies and gentlemen. That's why with such confidence we invite you. If you have a child that you love, shall I say that again? If you have a child that you love, you ask yourself where that child should be when the Buddha Sásana is with us. Allow me to continue. Because really, the mind perceiving the taste, the touch and sight of the ice cream are three different effects. We can't connect them and make a story called an ice cream because the world is entirely composed of this anicca nature. Something interesting that I also noticed happened to me was the way I felt around the foreign tourists. Around Sri Lankan tourists, I felt superior, like I was special in some way because we were from the monastery. Yet when we were around Western tourists, people just like they are in Australia, talking in the way and acting in that way, I felt inferior. So she's talking about what was going through her mind. I started thinking about how I used to be like that, and that now that they must see me as someone very odd and different, because she's clad in the Anagáriká uniform. Even though I was just like them. Before, I wasn't sure how to apply the Dhamma to this either, so I decided to ask my teacher later. So she'd felt this sense of inferiority and a sense of superiority, so that's a ego playing a part there. And so she thought to herself, right, when I get back home, I have to ask my teacher. Do you do the same? 14 years of age, ladies and gentlemen, just imagine where she will be in another 10 years' time. Uprooted from Australia and planted in Ingiriya. Just wait and see the benefits and the advantages and the rewards that this child will reap because of the right choices and the decisions that her parents made on her behalf. Just give it a few more years. I have a feeling she'll be on this stage one day, talking to this audience. Well, I'll have to answer to her when I get back anyway. Something I hated was staying in a crowded house with 50 people. The house we stayed in was well kept, but it was smaller than my lay life house. I found it really uncomfortable to stay there because there were only 2 bathrooms, and in the morning we were all getting ready. It was completely havoc. There were huge lines to the bathroom and people were moving about everywhere having a gilampasa and getting changed. I struggled to cope with that too, remembering the luxury hotels where it would just be my mum, dad and I. I have to ask my teacher about this too. So she's taking down notes, things that she has to ask her teacher how to contemplate when she gets back. These were all the moments that I felt during the trip. I fell during the trip, but just like the way everything was shining. I'll start again. These were all the moments that I fell during the trip, but just like the way everything was pushing me down, there was a lot pulling me up. With each place we visited, I became more and more confident in choosing to be an Anagáriká. Before I came to the monastery, I had to help organize a pilgrimage for Australians to come to the monastery. And then some sacred places in Sri Lanka. I know just how much those people gained from that trip, and I think that it is from what I gave them that I received what I have now, particularly the pleasant mindset and determination I gained from the trip. So I don't know if you remember, towards the tail end of last year, we had a few pilgrims from Australia and a few neighboring countries, and they came and spent 2 or 3 weeks at the monastery. If you were at the monastery at the time, you would have seen a few faces. So this girl, she was in Australia at the time, and she and her father and mother, very devoted to the Sásana. They also help organize a lot of the operations that go on in Australia when our monks visit there. So she was instrumental to organizing the whole pilgrimage and the tourists as they visited Sri Lanka. So she's talking about that. Although she's only 14, she's very talented and she's such a skilled girl. That's why I say wait, and when the time is right, she will blossom and be a beautiful flower in the Sásana. Of that I'm certain. The part of the trip I loved the most was seeing just how much my ancestors have respected and upheld the Buddha. With every intricate sculpture and painting, I realized just how profound the Buddha must have been to people in the past. The ruins that remain from structures that would be impossible to construct, even today, show just how significant this Sásana was, how many minds would have been set free, and how many arahants would have set foot on this earth. It was from this that I realized just what a great responsibility I'd received. From the Sásana that we build up today, thousands of minds will be set free. Thousands of arahants will step foot on this earth, and the truth will flourish. Folks, coming from a 14-year-old, this is the stuff that I share with you. And I'm almost 40. Coming from a 14-year-old, someone who spent the most part of their lives in Australia, a culture very different to that of ours. Just imagine the environment that she must be getting from her teachers now, and how she has begun to understand and assimilate this asana. After seeing the ruins of pagodas and alms hall in Anuradhapura, I started imagining the ruins of our monastery. Bless her. Remnants of the golden age of the Buddha Sásana for people in the future to bring their hands together in veneration just like we did that day. Let's hope you won't be there to do that, huh? It was from this that I began feeling incredibly grateful for being alive in this time, for my parents that took great care of me and offered me to the Sásana. Because I get to be there as the Sásana takes its first few steps, help build it up so that the world can be freed from the fires of Játi. So, just like how our ancestors gave their entire lives, their full hearts and soul, all of their energy to the Sásana, I thought I should do the same. To be able to set yourself aside for the sake of others is the best way to be set free yourself. Wonderful. How profound those words are. Another experience that really hit home for me was going to Ruanvelli Mahasaya. I remember coming to the monastery last year to visit for a couple of days. After that, in front of Ruanvelli Mahasaya, I made a determination to offer my life to the Sásana. So this was the year before she became an Anagáriká. That year, I was able to give my best to the Sásana. When the Swamin Wahanses came to Australia, I spent countless sleepless nights making videos, planning meals, and going shopping to organize events. After that, I was able to become an Anagáriká and go to the Ruanvelli Mahasaya a year later with my prayer mat and fellow Anagárikas and my teachers. I realized how powerful a determination can be if you stick to it, and just how much my life has changed after offering my life to the Sambuddha Sásana. So I decided to make another determination. Let's see what she has in mind this time. This time, to bring 1,000 other people to the Ruanvelli Mahasaya, people that have set foot on the path to Nibbana. That's the determination that she had made, to bring another 1,000 people just like herself. Whether she can achieve 1,000 or 100 or even 10, we don't know. But that's not what matters. In a little body, there's a mind that can embody, that can encompass the whole world. See how much she has grown and matured, ladies and gentlemen. From someone who used to think about herself. This is a girl who used to live in the lap of luxury. You can imagine what her lifestyle must have been like. Fashion, right? All sorts of other things like that. What young girls do these days. But then she encountered the Sásana. And now she doesn't live for herself. She wants to do much for herself as well as 1,000 other people. This is what the Sásana has made and what the Sásana has done to her. Finally, ultimately the trip was quite transformative. I got on the bus, curious and inquisitive about the lay world, enticed by all the pleasurable things I saw, remembering my lay life and all the luxuries I had. Yet I got off the bus completely renewed. I had a new appreciation for our monastery after seeing much of what I saw in the outside world, and I felt like I'd arrived home. I now have a purpose to work towards. I have to overcome my insecurities around foreigners if I want to help them, and I have to give my everything to the Sásana to help build it up. Now, everything is on our shoulders. As the world starts to deteriorate, the Dhamma must flourish. That's what we are here for. Now, I work towards the one determination that the next time I go to the Ruan Valley Mahasaya, I'm going to bring with me 1,000 others. Whether or not it happens, I'm not sure, but I know for sure that I will try. That's the end. Doesn't that make the hairs on your back stand up? From a 14-year-old? A life that has now been committed to the Sambuddha Sásana? This is the caliber of students that you support. Because we can't do this alone, ladies and gentlemen. We can't do this alone. Perhaps we would not have even been able to invite her to come and become an Anagáriká if we didn't have an education program at the monastery, because we are legally obliged to teach, of course. And they must learn as well. Children must learn, otherwise how would they understand how the world works out there? It takes a whole village to raise a child. This is not just Guru Hamdru or our Swamin Mahanses, their teachers alone doing it. This is a collective effort. This is a specimen, one specimen of the kind of young hearts and minds we strive to nurture and create and embody the values of compassion and loving kindness and selfless giving, and to truly care about the human race, not about my race. She's not talking about I'm going to bring freedom to women. She's talking about I'm going to bring freedom to humanity. See, if she's like this, imagine what her teachers must be like. I never had this when I grew up. Excuse me. I never had this when I was growing up. I had very good teachers, yes, and they taught me how to live up here. They taught me well how to live up here. For that, I'm always grateful. But I never had a teacher who had the insight to talk me and share the truth about what's really going on with me. These young children, they're growing up in and amidst teachers, noble association. Just imagine what collectively we'll be able to produce for this world. This is peace for the future. Peace. This is world peace for the future. This is healing the world for the future. This is helping people stand up on their own 2 feet without becoming slaves to their 5 senses. This is what it is. Delight, ladies and gentlemen, delight. Rejoice, ladies and gentlemen, rejoice. We are all working together to heal the world. One young girl at a time. One 14-year-old at a time. These are your children. Either your biological children or the children that you are supporting to help develop into great human beings of the future. I wanted to read this out to you because I want you to know what you are a part of. I want you to know what you are a part of. Everything that you offer on this table goes into making these things. Trust me, she didn't know that this was going to end up with me. In fact, she'll only know about this when she listens to the sermon tomorrow or the day after. They have a time to listen to these sermons at the Anagáriká, the English sermons. She'll be she'll be gobsmacked when she knows that her letter was read out. I'll try and hide from her for the next week or so. I want to thank you for being pillars of this Sambuddha Sásana. You know, there's a wave coming and we must ride it. This wave, if we can ride it well, we will be able to give this Sásana longevity and make it last for the next 600 years. That's what Guru Hamra always tells us. He says that this uprising has the energy, has the potency to last the next 600 years. That's 6 generations. 6 generations after you can all benefit from this Sásana. Remember your grandfather planted a coconut tree in your garden and you still take the coconuts from that? Remember your grandfather, your great-grandfather planted a mango tree and you still today, to this day, eat the mangoes from it, the rambutan, from the rambutan tree? Well, what if you could plant and nurture the Sásana that not just your grandchildren, but their children, and 6 generations after that can still reap the fruits of that hard work and labor. That's what I mean. The most important thing I want from all of you is this. That's the number one thing I ask of you. Do this as much as you can. Support the Sásana in the ways that are comfortable to you. In this, I want you to be relentless. In your support of the Sásana, do what is comfortable. But here, come out of your comfort zones as much as you can. Break those comfort zones. Break it. Come forward. Be ruthless with yourself in this regard. Your support, your donations, whatever you can do to the Sásana, do what is comfortable. Don't do anything that is not comfortable. But not here. Here, comfort is the greatest danger. Right, let's call it a day then. Let's do the transfer of merits and bring today's sermon to a close. Let us all take a moment then to transfer the merits that we have all acquired by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, as well as by creating a conducive environment for all to come along and practice the path, for welcoming everyone to this congregation. Let us take a moment to transfer this message to the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas who have since time immemorial protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and passed it down through generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us take a moment to transfer this message to the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries, as well as the monks and nuns resident throughout the world who practice diligently to attain their salvation, as well as the Mahanayakas and the Anunayakas and all of the other monks and nuns of this Sambuddha Sásana who strive day and night to preserve the Sri Sambuddha Sásana so that it is available to posterity. Let us also transfer this message to Guru Swami Mahanse, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery and the Anagárikas and Anagárikas attached to the monastery. Let us also take a moment to transfer these messages to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by translating these talks, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. May they all rejoice in these merits. Let us also transfer this message to friends of the monastery, our devotees, who for the sake of merits to help them attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana, continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes every one of those of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, arms, robes, and medicines, as well as pass on your know-how and continue to extend their well wishes. May they all rejoice in these merits and by the power of these merits. May they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our friends, our acquaintances, our employers and our employees, and our teachers, as well as anyone and everyone who've helped us, supported us, and assisted us in any way, shape, and form. May they all rejoice in these merits, and by the power of these merits, may they also be freed of any physical and mental ailments and overcoming obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to the Devas and Brahmanas, spirits and demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who have committed themselves to fulfill and preserve the Sambuddha Sásana. Let us transfer these merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits to our loved ones, those who passed away in our name, our forefathers, our ancestors, reminding ourselves that it is in their blood, sweat, and tears today we are able to enjoy the comforts of life as we do. Let us also transfer these merits to members of the armed forces as well as the police force who sacrifice their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation, as well as those who lost their lives in the wars, be their friend or foe. Let us also transfer these merits to those who lost their lives to natural disasters and calamities such as tsunamis and earthquakes, landslides, fires, floods, pandemics, and so on, reminding ourselves that in this infinitely long journey of samsara, they will all have been mothers and fathers to us, friends to us, acquaintances to us, and so with an abundance of compassion and loving kindness and a sense of gratitude for all that they have done for us, let us transfer all the merits we have acquired to all of them. May by the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May by the power of these merits, they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may by the power and blessings of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of arahants on this blessed land, and may you and I, and everyone who has helped make this program a success, become a rahatan vahanse or an arahat teranin vahanse in this very life itself and in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnen midatva, dvesha ginnen midatva, moha ginnen midatva, Nibbāna parama sukhayan Sukhitatarvatva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan Sukhitatarvatva. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satmayo Nibbāna parama sukhayan Sukhitatarvatva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan Sukhitatarvatva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan Sukhitatarvatva. Raga gini niveva, dvesha gini niveva, moha gini niveva, nivan sapa labeva, nivan sapa labeva, nivan sapa labeva. තුන්රුවන්ගේ සුවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ බෙලින් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. සාදු සාදු සාදු.